Life, culture and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 with Neil Johnson on Vision.
Well, the date for the New South Wales State Election is closing in fast. The state will be off to the polls on the 25th of March, and pre-poll voting will mean many will cast their votes well before Election Day. Well, our next guest is an interesting one, a former pastor who has been serving as a Lake Macquarie independent councillor and is now throwing his hat into the ring standing for the New South Wales State Election. Colin Grigg is joining us, and Colin's from communities just south of Newcastle. Colin, welcome along to 2020.
Thanks, Neil. Great to be here with you today.
Colin, some people might be surprised about a former pastor, throwing his hat into the ring in politics. We'll get on to that. But one of those things that goes together with Christian values and the changes that are going on are that things are changing so fast. Is there something in that is a motivation for your political aspirations?
You're spot on there, Neil. Yes, it's the changes that have happened in our politics. We have things happening that are against us as Christians, and I just felt back in 2016 I was invited to run in the local council elections at Lake Macquarie, and to my surprise, I got in and got in the second term. So I'm in my second term there currently. But want to take it a little further because I think we need to have Christians in our parliaments and putting that influence in there, Neil. It's got to be, there's got to be Christian influence there. And I believe that, the power of one, I believe that I won't be the only Christian there, but I believe that, one person can change a lot of minds, as indeed I can see that influence in Lake Macquarie in the 6 years that I've been there already.
I once had a conversation with a politician who suggested that the church was like a fourth tier of government. So you've got federal, state, local, and you've got church. There is a sense, isn't there, that church leadership prepares you in some special ways for entering into and being involved in politics?
Oh, absolutely. I'm surprised how married together they are, really. I mean, you learn in church to deal with people and indeed volunteers, and they're a different demographic, as you well know. But, you've got to, someone said once, church is an interesting thing. You order people around and you take their money and then you ask them to help.
Yeah, that's right. It is an interesting way that all works. Hey,
it really is. Yeah.
Your alignment in New South Wales with One Nation. What's your connection there, and how does your Christian values align with the One Nation Party?
Yeah, look, I looked around, Neil, at the Liberal Party, and I'm actually a long-term voter of the Liberal Party. But in the mid-teens of this century, I was getting very concerned about the direction they were going. And there seemed to be more sort of an anti-Christian attitude coming in there. And so I looked around, and really One Nation is the one party that is still protecting conservative people and indeed protecting Christians. So there's a lot of their policies that I 100% agree with. And, I have no problem. In fact, all of their policies are very good. And I believe that they are the party now that is representing the conservative vote. So I joined with them back in 2018, and I've been helping them out with different elections and those sort of things, and so just want to move forward and support their policies, which are big on education, big on energy, and keeping our lights burning and not facing blackouts and these sorts of things. Which I'm getting political now, but I think it came out last week or the week before from a group called AEMO, I call it, and they were saying and warning the Federal Labor Party that if we keep going on the road we're on, then in 2025 we're going to have blackouts.
There are certainly challenges economically and socially. And when you talk about, moving away from the Liberals, moving towards Mark Latham and the likes of Pauline Hanson, who, in my understanding, neither of them are church-going Christians, and yet they do appear to be the biggest defenders of the sorts of Christian truths and the morality that Christians tend to stand for. Are you constantly explaining yourself when you're in conversations with people who might vote for you?
Yes, but I don't mind that at all, Neil. I'm happy to explain and defend, if you like, my position. As I said earlier, there's a real correlation between the way you treat people in a church and the way you treat people as a politician. What I'm sick and tired of is the lies that get told in politics, and I'll be standing up to keep my word when I make promises. And I've had that from Mark Latham, and I believe that, and I believe that from Pauline Hanson as well. But I think that probably One Nation's had a pretty bad rap from the press, and it doesn't surprise me because they're happy to bag people who stand up for conservative values. And though they're not Christians, they certainly do stand up for the Christian ethic, for our Judeo-Christian system that we've grown up under, and they see that that's the only place that freedom reigns. So they're backing it, which is wonderful. And incidentally, I might just tell you, because you have a Christian audience, that Mark Latham recently said that regarding Christianity, when he was challenged, he said, well, I'm not there yet, but I'm in the waiting room, I think.
Yeah. And, I think that Mark Latham and others who are defenders of Christianity and some of the issues where Christians are under attack, there's a certain soft spot for those sorts of leaders that will stand up and defend the Christian position on so many issues. Hey, critics will say that Christianity and politics don't mix. How have you dealt with that sort of challenging argument?
Well, Neil, this is a great concern of mine, that a lot of churches are apolitical and believe that they shouldn't get involved in politics. And look, that's their conviction, and I would stand up for their right to have that conviction because I believe in free speech. But by the same token, I think that the church needs to wake up that the values are being frittered away by our current governments on both state and federal. And that it concerns me that people are just kind of going on as if, everything's going to be all right. I mean, I'm standing up not just for my own family and my own grandchildren, my kids, etc., but I'm standing up for the people of Australia who seem to be sleepwalking into a situation that is going to be dire. And everyone will wake up eventually, but it'll be too late. So I want to get the word out there. I guess, I've led a lot of people in politics to Jesus, and I intend to do that. And I'm going to be working on Mark Latham and from further distance, Pauline Hanson, and others. And I've already had influence that way in the One Nation Party. I've had people who now go to church because of, I'm not taking any glory because it's the Lord, but he's working through me to help people to come to a revelation of the truth. And so a lot of these are young people too, Neil. They're not old people. I've got people in their 20s who started going to church as a result of discussions with me.
Colin, not a lot of time to talk through the mechanics of getting elected, but I know that there'll be listeners saying, a former pastor standing for election at the New South Wales State Election for a Legislative Council seat in the upper house. How do people who are listening to our conversation now get behind your campaign and help that election process?
Yes, well, Neil, unfortunately, we're still a small party in relation to the big ones, the main ones. But we do have the opportunity right across this state of New South Wales to vote for the upper house. And that's what we're hoping people will support us in, because we're not too far away. And the way that the polls are going, we have a realistic chance of taking balance of power in the upper house, which would be awesome, because then the major parties would have to come to us to get things through. And if we can get 5 or even 6, hopefully, and I'm praying that way, then we would definitely have the balance of power and we'd have more control over the New South Wales Parliament, which would be a boon for Christians everywhere. So people should, not be rusted on and vote for, their traditional parties, Liberal and Labor, and, the Nats and the Greens, because they've all gone left. And that's a concern for me too. So, and then you've got the media that is also supporting that particular philosophy. So anyone who stands up gets bagged, and we have the cancel culture, which we've seen quite a bit. And apparently in the background there's hundreds more who've been cancelled that we don't even hear about. But Christians need to be concerned, and concerned for, if not for themselves, for their children, for their grandchildren, and just the country as a whole. It's not going to be the same country. It's not going to be the freedom that we've had in the past. And we're seeing that already. If people aren't awake to that yet, then they need to have a second look. They need to delve into things and not just take politics as, wave your arms up in the air and it's nothing to do with me, I'm a Christian. I think it's time for Christians to really get serious and try to understand what politics is about. And I'm not going to tell them who to vote for, but vote for somebody that you've checked out. And make sure that they have a Christian ethic and that they will defend the Christian ethic. At least that much is something that will maintain the kind of society that we've had. And, there's no free speech around. We know that. We all know that we can't say whatever we think. And that just tells you that our freedom, that alone tells us that our freedoms are under threat. And these are obvious things and things that we see on the news every day. So I hope that people will take a good, hard look at things and vote the right way. But, if you want a certainty, and I'm giving a plug to the party now, One Nation will definitely be defending that. And if I get in, I will certainly be speaking up and pushing hard for the maintenance of church and Christians throughout this land.
Well, Colin, you might have won a few more friends, and the thought of One Nation, some people are still reluctant to see the real value of One Nation. But as you say, this is the perhaps one alternative party that is sticking up for Christians, freedoms, the way we think of church under attack in this time. So for listeners to connect, let me just point to the One Nation website, nsw.onenation.org.au, and perhaps you can connect with Colin Grigg, Grigg. Colin is standing for an upper house or legislative council position and hopes to be on the crossbench as a representative for One Nation. Colin, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts with us today on 2020.
Neil, thanks so much for the opportunity. I very much appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.